Well, I got to talk about some of these burning snow videos I've seen on YouTube, man. Wow. Anyway, and the chemtrails. Now, first off, I want to preface this. This message is being sponsored by the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Securities Agency. Just kidding. Anyway, I'm going to get on to with some things with the chemtrails because actually I think it may be true. You know, I'm looking at pictures. I've seen pictures of stuff over the years. I'm like, I don't know, that don't look like a plane did that stuff. You know, there's all these crisscross marks flying across the sky. But I'm going to offer some other explanations too. And, you know, I don't work for the NSA or the CIA, but, you know, I looked at these videos with the burning snow when they said, you know, in Atlanta and Tennessee, they took some snow and they balled it up and they put a lighter to it or a butane torch or something, and it looked like it didn't melt. It like it evaporated or something. It went away and it had a burn mark on it, right? Now I'm going to offer an explanation because, you know, I'm in Florida. I can't get snow. I'm not going to drive 300 miles to go get some damn snow and do an experiment. I know if I was up and I had snow outside right now, I'd take a big pot, I'd fill it up with snow, and I'd melt it, and I'd see water. That's what I would see. And you know what I would do with the water after that? I wouldn't drink it. I'd put it in a water distiller and see what residue was left, and maybe even have it analyzed and see if there's some chemical in it, you know? Now, there could be a lot of pollution up in the air, too. That's something else. I don't know. Maybe there's some garbage going on with that. But when you hold a flame to snow, snow is 10 times, like if you have 10 inches of snow, that's 1 inch of water. So in other words, when you put a flame to snow, it melts in on itself and turns to ice. So if you put a flame on ice, it's 1-to-1. Like 1 inch of ice is 1 inch of water. 10 inches of snow is 1 inch of water. So it melts back in on itself. Then if you see the black soot, that's from the flame itself. The byproduct of the flame. It's not like the snow is burning. And you know what you might be smelling is the freaking fuel from the lighter. You know, it's probably more reasonable. Now, there may be some chemical in the snow that is from pollution, from chemtrails. I don't know, maybe. Now, I'm going to offer something on this stuff with chemtrails. You know, I've seen this over the years, and I'm going to bring this up in this video because a lot of people are probably associating the burning snow with the chemtrails. Now, do I think there's chemtrails like deliberately putting stuff out in the sky? You know, I've seen too many pictures and videos that, as crazy as it sounds, it seems like it's real. It seems like it's real. But is it totally, are people 100%, you know, they're making this conclusion that it's for evil purposes. And I almost tend to think, say it's true and they're doing it. You know, people thinking, well, they're trying to reduce the population of the earth and all this kind of garbage. And, you know, what may be going on, it's all hypothetical I'm putting out here. I don't know. You know, I mean, if I could be a PhD and I could be, you know, I'm not, but that's what a PhD will come out here and go, this is the reason I got inside sources. But the thing is, if they're doing, say they're doing these chemtrails and it actually is real, say it's real, you know, maybe it's for something that they fear that something's going to come up in the future that it needs to be done to protect civilization too. Maybe. You know, it may be for actual purposes that are necessary too. You know, a lot of people don't. They automatically assume it's evil purposes. But if, let me put it to you this way, 101 common sense. If there was some evil, you know, there always is evil people in the world. I'm not so naive to think that, and they gravitate to the top. But, you know, say there were some people in the world that want to get rid of a lot of the human race. That's real easy. You know, nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare would do it real fast. I mean, you don't have to use chemtrails. Okay? Right there. So, I mean, it's very simple. I mean, it wouldn't take much. I mean, there's so many nuclear stockpiled weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons out there that if there's a war started, you know, that would reduce the population of Earth like in no time flat without going around spraying the sky with chemtrails, you know, if you want to, you know, entertain that theory. So, you know, maybe you know, say they're real, and it's for purposes other than, You think they are. Maybe it's for protection. But, you know, say, let's entertain that thought that maybe chemtrails are put up there for some possible event that maybe, you know, NASA thinks might happen. If they told people this, if that was true, if, I don't know, if they told people this, knowing how people are, holy shit, they would panic to the max. And you know, it's been known. Like back in 1938, H.G. Wells put out a skit on the radio about Martians landing in the United States. It was a radio skit, and they kept interrupting the radio program, telling people it was a skit. Oh my God. You know, people were jumping off the freaking roofs. And, you know, I mean, there's so many things out there that have happened like this where fear and emotions just take off. And, you know, I can even relate to things what happened with the Gulf oil spill, how people were talking about it's going to be the end of the world. You know, the whole United States is going to split in half. There's going to be a methane bomb and all this kind of garbage. And, you know, the Mississippi is going to turn into a big channel, and the Great Lakes are going to fall into the, you know, Gulf of Mexico and everything. People panic. So maybe, you know, if there is a reason for the chemtrails for some reason, that, you know, maybe it's a reason that there's a possible potential problem that they think may come up. Maybe there's a reason that's good. Maybe it's a good reason. I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, it's probably more likely than the evil reason when you think about it. Because I said, if they want to get rid of people, it's real easy. Just start a war. Nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons will take care of it in no time flat. So, you know, it's probably what I'm saying is legit. And, you know, the reason they would never tell people, if, say, you know, assuming this is correct, they would never tell people that, you know, chemtrails are for this reason, that we might have a problem in the cosmos with whatever. It would panic people. You know, I'm going to give you an example. I think during the Gulf of Mexico, when they had the oil spill, there was that big gusher of oil coming out of the earth. And when I think they act, you know, it's my theory, but I think it's a probably legit theory. I think they actually nuked that. They used a small tactical underground nuclear weapon to shut off the oil stream that was coming out, the oil leak. I think that's what they used. The Russians were suggesting that for months. They couldn't figure out how to stop it. And what was interesting was they had they had a storm come by right, you know, when the oil was still coming out. All the ships left, and that was after they drilled vertically almost up to the point where they needed to. And during the storm, they had a little seismographic earthquake or something they picked up when all the ships were gone. And when the ships came back after the big, you know, storm that was supposed to happen, it was a fairly good sized storm that churned up the water and it corrects it. You know, caused the oil to kind of mix into the water, you know, which wasn't too good, but kind of got rid of the oil spill in one way or the other. It didn't look like it was there. It turned out the oil gusher stopped. You know, before the storm, the oil gusher was going full force. After the storm, the oil gusher was stopped. And they had a little earthquake on the seismograph. And I'm thinking, they probably took the suggestion from the Russians about using a small nuke to shut it. But you know what? If they would have told people, hey, we're going to nuke the well shut, you would have had all these PhDs and governmental, ex-governmental officials on the internet telling you that you better get out of here. They would have had a mass exodus of millions of people from the Gulf. There would have been panic. It would have created, like, total havoc. And that's why they don't tell people nothing. They keep them in the dark because a little bit of information actually does far more damage to the average person, because the average person, oh man, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So, you know, I want to point out about this damn stuff with this snow melting. You know, you can, you know, with snow, it's like I said, it's 10 times the volume of like ice. And when you put a flame to it, it melts in on itself, right? Now, there may be some chemical garbage in there from something in the air, yes. But I think people are reading into this quite a bit more than actually is what's going on, man. It's like a little bit ridiculous. And, you know, possibly there may be, you know, it may be related to chemtrails. If there are chemtrails, you know, you don't really know what the hell they're really for. They could be for good purposes versus bad purposes. Because like I said, the common sense 101 thing is, if they want to get rid of people, just start a nuclear, biological, and chemical war, and they got rid of them. You know, it may be that they expect something to come up in the future and they don't want to tell people what the hell it is. I don't know. I'm just guessing on this. But, you know, if you look back in ancient history, you know, the pyramids are probably 13,000, 14,000 years old. They're not 4,000 or 5,000 years old like some, you know, the traditional archaeologists say. And, you know, things have probably been far more advanced in the past, maybe 15,000 years ago, than is admitted in the history books. And I know there's hidden history. And, you know, just to point out something, that probably something catastrophic happened at one point in time more than 10,000 years ago. You can look this up on YouTube. There's an example of a pyramid that was found north of the Azores, which is in the, you know, pretty much in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the Azores. Now the Azores are pretty much noted for having structures, large structures that were built by some ancient civilization before the Portuguese came on board. And, you know, that proves that there was people living there. But it was a sailor, an amateur sailor, who sailed a large catamaran that found a pyramid underwater with the seismograph. It's a perfect pyramid. It's 60 meters high, which is about 190 feet high. It's points north, south, and everything, just like the pyramids of Giza. And it's perfectly symmetrical. And likely they knew about this before. You know, other governmental authorities and oceanographical authorities knew about this, but, you know, now that the amateur sailor has proven it and shown it, and on a seismograph, it's actually public knowledge. But, you know, that may actually be the lost Atlantis, or whatever the hell it was from many years ago, from legend. But, you know, it goes to show that sometimes catastrophic things have happened on the earth, and it's probably very provable that there have been advanced civilizations. You know, mankind was much more advanced many, many thousands of years ago, and something cataclysmic happened, and there was a problem. Now, maybe there's something possibly going to come up again, and maybe that's why there is chemtrails. But to tell, you know, I wouldn't even know this for a fact, and you know, assuming it's correct, and assuming the theorists think that something might happen, even they wouldn't know, because the best experts always get it wrong. But, you know, automatically, if you make the, you know, if you look at chemtrails and you say, yeah, they're real, and you can see all these pictures, and, you know, pictures I've seen, is pretty obvious. You know, you see like a gazillion crisscrossed perfect pattern. I'm like, and they're just still, you know, it stays in the sky a hell of a lot longer than a normal trail from a jet. You're thinking, well, maybe that is chemtrail, you know? I don't know if you know this for sure, but say it was. If it was being done for survive, you know, causing the Earth to survive something that possibly might happen in the future, they wouldn't tell anybody. You know why? Because people would be freaking panicking, man. Just like this deal with the snow. I tend to think this garbage that they're putting out on the internet with the snow not melting and all this kind of crap. Like I said, if you have snow and you melt it melts in on itself. In other words, it pulls right in, it becomes ice. So it becomes 10 times more compact. In other words, I would like to see, you know, if I was running that experiment, I would take a whole pile of snow, stick it in a pot, and put it on a slow flame, and I bet you any money it goes to water. And it will be a lot less water than the snow, because snow height is 10 times what the water height is. In other words, 1 inch of water is 1 inch of rainfall, or 1 inch of water is 10 inches of snow. That's a fact. That's why if you put the flame to an ice cube, the water runs off it. When you put the flame to a snow, it melts back in on itself and crystallizes to ice. So it looks like it's going to nothing, and it's chemicals, and you get a black mark on there from the flame, which is the residue from the flame. So, but you know, if there ever was a problem with anything, The authorities aren't going to tell you what's going on. And there's a reason why. It's the people themselves. That is a fact. You know, I have a big suspicion, and not that I'm faulting anybody on the government for this or anything, because I have a big suspicion that they used a small mini nuke to shut the oil gusher down in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. That's why all of a sudden it miraculously stopped after the storm. They had this storm come by, and then during the storm there was this little mini earthquake they picked up, and when the ships came back in, like the whole oil slick was freaking gone. But there's no oil coming back out of the ocean again. They probably nuked it shut. But if they would have told the public we're going to use a nuke on this, you would have had every fearmonger out there on the internet coming out with all their specials on how the end of the world is going to happen. It's going to blow up the methane, and it's going to cause a catastrophic, cataclysmic tidal wave that's going to wipe out the Gulf Coast. And you would have millions of people heading for the hills for nothing. That's why the government doesn't say a lot of stuff, too. You got to look at it that way, too. I mean, it's there's evil in the government, but then again, you can't tell people the truth because they panic. And that's really what the problem is. And I think there's a hell of a lot of misinformation about it out there about this burning snow that's plastic. Anyway, you know, and I don't live where the snow is, so I can't do an experiment. Well, like I said, if I was running this experiment, I'd take a giant pot, and I notice even from Boy Scouts 101, when you melt snow for water, you don't melt it real fast. You put it in there a little bit at a time. And once you get it to water, then you can throw a bunch more in it. I even knew that from camping days when I was 10 years old, for crying out loud. So, you know, if you try to take a flame to snow, it's going to melt in on itself. It's going to turn to ice crystals, and it looks like it's disappearing and not turning into water. But it is turning into water, and it's melting onto itself and turning into ice. And when you see the black part on the snow, that's the leftover, that's the flame residue from the damn lighter. Anyway, over and out.